everyone. I'd like to call the July meeting of the Eastham Part-Time Resident Taxpayers Association to order. I would like to welcome all the members to the July meeting. I'm Helen Kinsman, President, and this is Dave Baxter, Secretary, Jen Keene, Treasurer, TJ Keene, who is our Association Administrator. Over here we have Jackie Beebe, Town Administrator, Amy Ekman from the Selectmen's Group, and we have Ed Kohalik from the Police Department, and Dan Keene from the Fire Department. Thank you very much for coming, everyone. Many of our board members are also in attendance, and I'm going to ask them to stand when I call their name so that they can be recognized. Sue Connor, she is our former president, past president. Larry Pasco. Greg Bowie, I believe, is still out checking in people in the outside room, along with George Lee and Mary Pikars. Barbara Reed is back there in the striped dress. She's been in charge of refreshments and she's done a great job. Greg is now in the back with Jean Tierney, who is also a board member, and June Morris. I don't think I've seen June this morning. I think that pretty much takes care of our board of directors. We also have Bob Sheldon over on the left. We have Sheila Filipowski from the Eastham Conservation Commission. And on the right, there's Joe Mistretta from the Eastham Historical Society. And also, next, just before you reach Joe, there is a table that has some information that I was given by Mary Shaw from the Eastham Library, just some paperwork that you might want to pick up of interest to you. The library is now open on Sundays, started this year 11 to 4. So I think we should be all set. I'm going to ask Dave Baxter to speak about the Secretary's report.
So the Secretary's report is in the minutes. There are the minutes, right, that they have.
The report is included on the minutes, and I need a motion to approve after you've taken a few seconds to look at it.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Seconded. Can I have ayes? All in favor of approval? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you.
Before Jen Keene speaks about the treasurer's report, I want to apologize to Scott Weaver. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention your name. He's also part of our board of directors. Jen?
Good morning. On the wall over here is our income statement. It is not in your packet. It will be in your packet next month when we have to approve it. But a couple of the key takeaways here. On the top is our income. For halfway through the year, we are about $3,000 or $4,000 short of where we were last year. This year so far we have $9,820. Last year we were $13,310. That's one of our big takeaways. The other thing that we did last year was community outreach. We gave $5,000 to the library for a bench in the back. So if you do go to the library and go around outside and then go around towards the water, there's a beautiful bench there dedicated to our past president, Bob Overton. So that was $5,000. Every year we're supposed to give away half of our net income, and that was for 2 years of net income to pay for that bench. So that was $5,000 expense that we had this year. The newsletter and marketing expenses are down as of right now, but we're going to get a couple bills in the mail. We did send out a letter to all new Eastham residents that were part-time to get some new members, which we are getting a positive response from that. And the insurance, right now, we'll pay that later in the year. So those are the really only big differences from last year. The next page is the balance sheet. As of right now, we have $54,340. And that's down again, approximately $5,000 because of our gift to the library. Does anyone have any questions? I know you're not here to listen to this. You're here to listen to these guys. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jen. I just want to mention a little bit about the benches that Jen made reference to. As she said, we give away, donate, I should say, 50% of our residual income to either local nonprofits or other expenses that are not covered by tax dollars. In the past, we have done such things as contribute toward a solar trash compactor for one of the beaches. We have donated a shade umbrella for the playground area at Wiley Park. This past year, we had donated the 2 benches for use on the back patio area of the library facing the pond. It's really very peaceful, quiet spot back there, beautiful view. So it'd be nice if you went down and checked it out and enjoyed sitting for a while and just enjoying the beautiful view of Minister's Pond. Thank you. Okay, we're going on to committee reports, and the first person on that list is George Lee, and here's George. You probably met George earlier today outside in the foyer.
Thank you. Well, good morning, everybody. I'm the membership chair, and I met some of you on your way in. I'm glad that all of you could make it this morning. If we look at this slide, you can see that currently we have a few over 1,400 members. This, of course, is before people who joined this morning, and also anybody who joined in the last few days, and also that won't be updated yet. But you can see that there are a few people who have not paid recently. 101 of them in particular haven't paid since 2015, and they will be removed unless the dues are paid soon. We also, each spring, send out what we call a marketing letter to people who have recently purchased a house in Eastham and are not full-time residents, encouraging them to join our organization. This year, we sent out over 1,000 of those letters in the last few weeks, and this is actually more than double what we usually send out, so hoping we're going to get a good return on that. So we will be, hopefully by the August meeting, we'll have a better idea of how many of those people decided to join. Okay, the next slide. You can see basically since 2013, our membership has maintained about 1,400 people. So it's fairly consistent from year to year. Besides the marketing letter, we also send out something called the amnesty letter in the fall. So anybody who has not paid their dues by the fall, we remind them that they are in arrears, and we ask them to pay up to keep their membership current. So last year, we sent out 543 amnesty letters, and 149 people did sign up again. For your information, there are approximately 3,600 part-time resident households in Eastham out of a total of 5,800 residents. So you can see it's more than half the number of households. And we also encourage our members to pay with PayPal. It makes bookkeeping a lot easier. You just go on the computer and you don't even need a PayPal account. You can, just fill in the information and no amount will be taken out of your checking account. And 38% of our members do use PayPal. And then we have to have a way of getting in touch with you quickly if there's any important news we want to share with you. So that's why we would like to have your email addresses. You can see that we have most people's email addresses, but there are a few that have given us whose emails are no longer current. If you are not receiving messages from us, you should check that we have your correct email address. And the last thing I mentioned is the newsletter. You can get it the traditional way by snail mail. That way you just get one copy. However, if you get it electronically, then you can forward it to your relatives or friends who might be interested in what's going on in Eastham. So you might consider having it sent electronically rather than by post office. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, George. Next, would Greg come up to the front? And Greg is our newsletter chair. He took over this past winter from Dave Crimmins, who was a longtime board member and also newsletter chair. And Dave no longer is a part-time resident and had to resign from the organization. And Greg took over as of the spring newsletter and did a wonderful job, continued Dave's great work. And he does it all from Chicago.
Thanks, Helen. I'm also the chair, so we're bringing more chairs out, so we'll bring a few more out. Thank you very much. So the association puts out 4 newsletters a year. If you saw the spring one, it had a lot of information on the town, so a lot of the topics when we talk about the towns, we've done a lot of voting and things are a little changing in town. So it'll be a very interesting discussion and we cover that in our newsletter. If you didn't get a chance to see that, you can look at our website and see that. Also, you get the newsletters by electronically or by mail, depending on your preference when you fill out your information on your preference of that. So, and the summer newsletter will be coming out soon, so look forward to that. And if anybody has any information or topics that they want to cover in the future, I'll be around afterwards. Just catch me and we can consider putting that in our future newsletters. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Greg. Well deserved, that's a big job. Also, both George and Greg had mentioned about getting your newsletter electronically rather than by snail mail. You also can get it considerably faster electronically than you can by snail mail. Dave Baxter is going to speak about the proposed rental tax update presently going on in the Massachusetts legislature.
Yep.
Okay, so the current update is that the proposed excise tax on rentals has been approved by the Massachusetts Senate and by the House, and they are currently in the process of working on creating a joint resolution, so to speak. They have until the end of July to craft that and then send it to the governor for approval. The governor then has 10 days either to approve it or to veto it and send it back for amendment. So that's where we stand right now. At the state level, the tax is proposed to be 5.7%, and then the town of Eastham would then be able to investigate, and if they wanted to, they could add supplemental excise room tax up to 6%. So once the state passes, then we'll see what happens locally. And that's the update for now. I think we're keeping our eye on it. It's definitely in process, so if you're interested, keep apprised. Thanks.
And I'm sure that Jackie is also going to speak in detail about that topic as well. Which brings me to introducing Jackie Beebe again. our town administrator, and she's going to give us a town of Eastham update.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good morning. It's so good to be here as always. I think we're all so impressed at how many of you show up for this meeting every year. It's just, it's crazy and lovely. So thank you for coming and for listening and for asking such great questions, because I know you will. I'm going to sort of wrap up today. So I'm going to let my staff go forth, and of course, I'm sorry, Amy Ekman, Selectman, my boss, not my staff.
Don't let her fool you.
They're going to go first and talk about the different topics, and then I'll sort of wrap up and give an overview. We have accomplished a lot this past year, and there's a lot looking forward. So I will take a little bit of your time this morning, because there's a lot to sort of follow up on. But I'm going to let Amy go first. And
I forgot to mention, if anyone has any questions for either Jackie or Amy or Ed or Dan, excuse me. If you raise your hand, one of our board members will hand you an index card and something to write with and collect the card from you. Jackie will take care of questions at the end of the presentation.
thank you, Helen. Amy Ekman.
All right, good morning, everyone. So, let's see where to start. So I'll touch on a couple of the things that we accomplished at town meeting this year. The first big one is the rezoning of the area from Arnold's to basically to the Wellfleet line. And it's referred to as a District of Critical Planning Concern now by the Cape Cod Commission. It passed overwhelmingly at town meeting this year. And I don't know if a lot of you followed it, but it really is a comprehensive look at future zoning. And a couple of things that sort of set this in motion were, first, when the Cumberland Farms grew, let's say, in size, you know, people were pretty alarmed that, oh boy, how did this happen? Well, everything they did was allowed under current zoning. And so, you know, people got a little worried about what is Route 6 going to look like in the future through Eastham. Then Dollar General showed up, and that really alarmed people, and really set forth in motion a citizen group that came forward, and actually one of our new selectmen, Jamie Rivers, pretty much single-handedly got them to go away. I mean, she really did. She went to the commission, the county, what can we do to stop this? And it was quite a lengthy process. We did what's called a discretionary development of regional impact. We applied to the Cape Cod Commission, and they accepted it. And that, at first, really scared the Dollar General people back. And they pretty much didn't show up to any of the meetings or provide any information. So the commission ruled that, you know, they can't build, basically. So they sold the property to someone else. And they actually sold it to a local developer who has plans. He's met with local business owners and citizens in the town. He wants to put a mixed-use development in there with some businesses, with apartments over at the top, maybe some other apartments in the back of the property, because I believe it's about 3 acres of land. And so everyone really breathed a sigh of relief, but they could come back under current zoning. So that's when we really stepped in to do this District of Critical Planning Concern. And our town planner, Paul Legg, was phenomenal in this. He worked very closely with the commission. I think he had meetings probably at least once a week, if not more, and really kept the selectmen up to date as to what was happening. And there's a lot in that new zoning, which I encourage you, is there still the link on the town webpage? There's a whole folder for the District of Critical Planning Concerns, so you can see what the plans are really for the future. So it isn't, I mean, some people think, well, how are you going to do this? How are you going to make people basically knock down buildings and put up what you want? That's not really what it is. It's future development. So if a business wants to, say, remodel, there are certain thresholds that would trigger more stringent zoning, more stringent architectural designs and things like that, and size. So hopefully in the future, you know, when there's a bunch of tired buildings up there, and along the highway especially, and when they go to redevelop, these things will kick in, and hopefully we'll get to see something really really nice along Eastham, and not a bunch of abandoned buildings and things like that, overgrown lots and those sorts of things. And once that passed, now what we're going to really look at is Route 6. And I think everybody agrees that something needs to be done. People can't necessarily agree on how to get there, but I think everybody believes that we have to do something because it is so dangerous. And hopefully, you know, in this meantime, before we get that accomplished, that no one else dies out there. So please be careful. Try to go 40 if you can, and you know, save some lives of people trying to get across the street. I mean, people getting to the pizza barn, if they're not in a car, there's no way to get there. So you see people on bikes, it's a nightmare. So, you know, try to be cautious and respectful of that. So that's about all I have on the DCPC. If there are any more questions, please write them down. And I have some cards up here if you want to email me and ask more questions too. As far as other town business, the town now has a Facebook page. And our selectman, Jamie Rivers, has been really good about updating that pretty much about 5 minutes after we finish meetings. I noticed it's popping up on there. So she's really on it. And it's very current. And there's some great information on there. So subscribe, like it, whatever, follow it, so you can see what's going on in that avenue. And the next big thing I have is to talk about the library. It was touched on that the library is now open on Sundays. I think the first one, we had close to 300 people come on the first Sunday. This week, there were over 500 people on Sunday. And this week alone, we've had over 4,000 people come into the library because it's nice and cool. We have really good Wi-Fi. So come in and enjoy the library. Some of the things the director wanted me to pass along. We just received a National Building Award for our new library. And several of us from the town went, myself, the director, a couple trustees, all the architects, project managers, everyone went to New Orleans to accept the award just a couple weeks ago, which you think it was hot here last week. I about melted. But they have good air conditioning down there, which is nice. But this national award is given it's a joint award from the American Library Association and the American Institute of Architects. And they've been doing it for 55 years, and it's a really big deal. This year there were 63 libraries that submitted, and 6 in the country were selected. So we were one of 6, and some of the comparisons I could throw out to you was there's a library in Austin, Texas. It's 6 stories, has a rooftop garden, and they said it costs more than a 1990s action movie. We asked the architects how much, and they said they weren't real sure, but they thought around $150 million. So it's quite a feat. I didn't ask how long it took to build because I can't imagine. But we're pretty proud of our library and the award we received. The award isn't just for how it looks. It's based more on if it fits the goals you set out when you went to build it. We had a certain criteria we had to meet to apply even to get the funds from the state. But it also looks at how it fits with the community and what needs it serves in the community. And that really, I think, is what pushed us over the top. Even though it is a beautiful design, I hope you all can get down there and check it out. Some of the other things the director wanted to tell you, they have a great online selection of services. So when you're not in town, you can still use your library card. We now have the New York Times on there, so you can look at the New York Times for free with your library card when you're back at home, here, wherever. We have, of course, ebooks and all those sorts of things. summer reading program. There's children's, of course, programming every day. I'm not sure if Mary brought some brochures here for that, but they have quite an extensive children's program, including puppet making on Sundays. We now have a telescope that you can check out from the library. And it's not a little, you know, a little telescope. It's a big, I think it's 6 inches, it's around about this long. It's a huge kit, and you can check it out. There's a little, you know, thing you have to fill out in the beginning to, you know, say you know how to work it, you know, and you're not going to damage it and that sort of thing, but you can just check it out with your library card. So I've been waiting to get it. It's a pretty hot item at the moment, but I hope to get it out on the beach one of these nights and have a peek at the Milky Way up close and personal. Let's see, what did I miss here? There's a few things coming up she wanted me to touch on. There's going to be a garden tour, July 10th, and I think that's part of the Hydrangea Festival, is that right? Yeah. So they sell tickets, and you go around and visit people's gardens. It's beautiful. It's a great fundraiser for extra things that the library uses. Bill Novak will be at the library on July 18th, and he has, I guess, a new book regarding humor for those over 50. So, and again, that's July 18th, and then watching painters paint. We have a lot of art exhibits at the library all year round. But on July 25th, they're going to have one of the painters in town, Paul Schulenberg, has classes usually in his studio where they have live models and they paint. And they're going to actually do this in the meeting room at the library, so everybody can watch the painters paint, which I think that'll be pretty exciting to see that. And the last thing is, Deb wanted me to pass on that everyone should sign up for the online newsletter called Wowberry. And Wowberry gives you sort of the hottest, latest books that are out, a list, and what's popular at our library, and also all the programs that are going on, from children's to the adult programming, movies. I believe they're having a baseball program coming up, and they're showing baseball movies. So something for everyone. So please come and check out our library. Thank you.
Yeah, Chief Colby.
Thank you. You know you've been here a while when you need glasses to see your own notes. So I was like, yeah, I'm getting old. I did want to talk about this year at the police department. We've gone through a big change in terms of people coming, people leaving. Our deputy chief, Ken Roderick, who some of you may know, he's been here forever. He was here when I got here in '09 and much time before that. A real institution in the town of Eastham. He retired on June 18th, and I'm going to miss him dearly. But I promoted a new deputy chief, Adam Bohannon. Some of you know the Bohannon family. Wonderful people. More importantly, he's a wonderful police officer, and I'm excited to have him as my second in command. Taking his place in the detective department as the detective sergeant is Gus Schnitzer, another local person. Great guy too. I keep saying great guy, and Jackie and I talk about her all the time. We have a wonderful complement of officers. As the chief, I can tell you, I couldn't be prouder and happier. It makes me sleep at night. I don't need to worry. I've got great people. New officers. We have 2 officers that transferred from Orleans over to Eastham. They finally saw the light. So we're excited, and more importantly, we don't have to train them. They know the area, they know the traditions, they know Eastham, they know our officers, they knew what they were getting into, and I couldn't be prouder to welcome them. So, as I say, a lot of change, but a lot of good things, and it's an exciting time. In terms of work and in terms of what's going on in town, The water project, as you all know, it continues. It's been a little slow lately, but I know next week they're going to be gearing up again. And for those of you who live in the Hay Road area, that area is going to be torn up, but you're going to have water down in the middle of your street. So that's a good thing. In terms of notifying neighbors and letting everyone know what's going on, if you haven't signed up for the Code Red system, and I know every year that we've had it, I tell you to do that, but I know there's still some folks that don't. Sign up, because you will be notified not only of water project construction, but of anything in town that could follow traffic or any pending storms that may result in some type of emergencies or sheltering or just a litany of things. We don't overuse it, but if it's an emergency or something in the community that is worthy of you knowing, it's a great, great system. And people seem to really like it. So just yesterday, Deputy Chief Bohannon put out a message about the Hay Road construction. And for those of you who live within that area, you got that message. And the nice thing about the system is that we can capture the whole town, a section of town, a street, and we can literally draw on a map of Eastham where we want that message to go. It's a real nifty system, and we're real happy to have it. So it's the Code Red system. You go on the town website, and you'll see Code Red, sign up, you put in all of your information, and you will get those messages when they come out. One thing I did want to talk about regarding notifications is our 911 system. In the next month or so, those of you who have just a cell phone when you're here, and many people just use their cell phone, don't have a regular landline. If you dial 911, it will go directly to the Eastham Police Department. For many years, it went to the state police and then was routed, and that's how the system worked. We had the opportunity to opt in to Wireless Direct, and I decided that was a great idea. So we're going to be doing that, and we haven't done it yet. It takes time for it to go through, but we will be doing that. So within the next few months, if you dial 911, hopefully you don't have to, but if you do, you'll reach our dispatcher rather than a dispatcher at the State Police Barracks in Middleborough. So we're happy about that. Amy had talked about the library, and I just want to mention, for those of you who maybe were here temporarily through the storms we had in March, late February, you would have noticed that we used the library as a warming station. We had significant cold. We had power outages, significant power outages. Our shelter had some difficulties due to a generator going out, which is being repaired. But we wanted to allow folks to warm up during that severe storm. So we opened up the library, and I will tell you, that worked like a charm. And people loved it. And it really worked and did wonders for folks just to warm up, to be together, to have Wi-Fi, to have power, charge up their phones. And our fire chief brought some food and goodies over, and so everyone was happy. Deb made coffee and hot cider, and it was amazing to see the feeling there, a real sense of community, a real sense of family, and a real nice venue to have. So that library has really come in handy on a lot of levels, not just for the typical use that you think of when you think of libraries. Trying to think of what else I wanted to talk about. Oh, the renovations. Some of you may have seen with the budget that came out that the police department was going to be going into some major renovations, and that will start to take hold in the fall. We'll start meeting to go over specifics and look for vendors. In 1989, the police department was built. Since then, we really haven't had any renovation to it. It's a tired building, and as you can imagine, a police department never closes. So 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, we're continuing to go. One of the major areas in that building is the locker rooms. We had significant problems with mold and dampness. all of the new lockers and the new systems for lockers now all have a steady negative airflow system, which pulls away all the moisture from the lockers themselves. And when we're talking about officers wearing bulletproof vests and heavy boots and other types of uniforms, that system is a wonderful system, and it's typically in all of the newer police departments. So that type of system will go in. Also, our training room will see some renovations, and our kitchen and our bathrooms. So we'll be seeing an upgrade. It's about a $600,000 project, which may seem like a lot of money, but when we look at some of the area police departments going through building renovations to the tune of 10, 12, 15 million, I think it'll be a very, very good investment and take us through for many, many years. So the officers, I can tell you, are very excited about finally getting a nice new locker room, and we're really, really excited about starting that. So that's going to be happening. And I just want to generally say, your officers out there, police officers of this town, are committed to serve you, to be there for you, whatever it may be. And don't ever think that whatever your problem is a ridiculous one that you can't call us for. You would be amazed at the things we come out to your house for, and we will continue to do that. The officers we hire know what they're getting into. We expect high level of service, and we expect them to be there when you need us. And I commit to all of you that we will do that. So I wish you a wonderful summer, and if I can help you with any little problem you're having, come in, say hello, and bring your problem, and hopefully I'll bring a solution. So thank you.
We are really lucky. So the next speaker is Dan Keene. Dan is our new deputy chief. How long have you been deputy chief, Dan?
September will be a year.
September will be a year. And although he looks young and handsome, he is a veteran of a couple of different fire departments. We stole him away from Sandwich. And he is a fantastic new addition, very complimentary to our Chief of Police, Kent Fahrenkopf, who I'm sorry could not be here today, but his daughter's stranded on Route 3 and he had to go and figure that out. But Dan, we hired Dan because of a lot of things, but one of which was to increase our inspectional program of businesses, restaurants, different facilities that we have that we felt we weren't getting to enough. So anyway, without further ado, Dan Keene.
Good morning. Being the new guy, I have to do my own name tag. So I thought it came out pretty well. So walking across the parking lot this morning, this is my first event here. With the part-time residents Taxpayers Association, and I noticed all the license plates. It blew me away, and I really thought I was at Disneyland walking into the ticket booth. So, as Jackie gave you a little background, I'm 53 years old. So I'm not that young. Anyway, so who am I, and what is a deputy chief? Just briefly, as she said, I started my career in the fire service in 1992 here in Massachusetts. About 26 years, and prior to that, I grew up in Pennsylvania, and I was a volunteer firefighter the minute I was 16 years old, so I'd ride my bike to the fire station before I could have a car. So that's where I got the bug. So then I worked for Sandwich for almost 20 years, Sandwich Fire Department, and I did inspections there as well. One of the things that a lot of people don't realize that the fire department does is we're responsible for prevention way more than we are putting out stuff. When something catches on fire, we failed, in essence. So the impetus, in my opinion, for the fire department is to prevent these things from happening. So that's why they brought me on board. We in Eastham, we had a deputy chief previously, went a few years without it, but then realized that it's such a valuable position. and I'm very humbled to be part of the community now. We finally relocated from Sandwich down now in Harwich. Couldn't quite make it to Eastham. So the deputy chief is a right-hand man to the chief. If you met Kent last year, I was thrilled. I've known him for years, and he's an outstanding individual, great leader, someone that's very knowledgeable. And I thought I could further my career by just working under him. So I do all the inspectional, I do responsible for the training programs for the firefighters. In the outreach, the fire prevention training that we do, stop, drop, and roll, everyone remembers that, right? But also when it comes to inspections, what really affects most homeowners is the state law that was passed a few years ago. It's called 26F under this Chapter 148, which says if anyone has purchased or sold real estate in Massachusetts in the last several years, you realize that in order to pass the papers, you need an inspection certificate from the fire department that says you have smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors and house numbers. Those are the three big things. Now in Eastham, we take it one step further. For oil-fired houses, we require a double wall oil tank. Now, if anyone is familiar with the oil tanks, the big 275 black dark thing in the corner of the basement that maybe will leak a little bit, you just throw some dirt on it. Those are incredibly harmful to the environment when they do let go. So we in Eastham require them to be upgraded with a double wall oil tank. It's a great idea, and those are basically bulletproof. Not to belittle this, but just a quick story. There was a tank that let go, and it was about a week. The owner smelled oil, didn't think anything of it, finally went in the basement, 200 gallons of oil. It seeped down through the concrete floor into the groundwater. So they had to remove the bulkhead, put a mini excavator in the basement, take 6 feet of ground out. So you see what I'm saying? And it costs money, someone's paying. It's not fun. So that's why we put that in, and we're so close. Our ecosystem is so diverse right here. We need to make sure that we pay attention to that. So, for those of you that have alarm systems, that have fire attached to it, a lot of people just have burglar, but if you have fire attached to it, and we get an automatic fire alarm and you're not here, I highly recommend, I'm trying to get it a bylaw requirement, but I highly recommend that you get a lockbox. If you're familiar with a lockbox, it's a secure box that you acquire from the fire department. We have the one and only key that will open it. Keyed only to the Eastham Fire Department, and we can get access to a door key, and we can get in the easy way versus the hard way. If there's smoke, and just an example is smoke on the stove, or cooking on the stove when they were at the beach. Dog was in the house, smoke was in, it was pretty bad. But we were able to get in and solve the problem before the dog was harmed. That's just one small example. So lockboxes are a good idea. If you're interested in that, you can grab one at the fire station. We'll help you install it, put the key in, okay? Commercial inspections. We do commercial inspections of all the buildings in town and the rental cottages, rental communities, etc. They all are done in a teamwork emphasis with the Board of Health and the building department. So the three of us, we get together, we powwow, and we show up to all the places. Probably the best organized inspectional program that I've been involved with, wherever I've worked and other towns that I've worked with. This is by far the best. We work together very well. We dot all the I's, cross all the T's. So it's probably one of the safest communities that I've worked with. So that's just, again, I'm the new guy. This is my first full year, and I'm realizing how put together the town of Eastham really is. So I'm proud to be a part of that. Just to touch on, I know last year it came up that there was a grant funded for 4 new firefighters. That grant got accepted by the town, and we were able to hire 4 new firefighters They will be here 6 months on the 16th of this month. 2 new paramedics, 2 new EMTs. That has increased our staffing by 25%. We are now able, we have 2 brand new ambulances in the fire station. We were only able to staff 1 of them. And from driving from here to Cape Cod Hospital and back, that's an hour-and-a-half trip. The station could be unstaffed for that hour-and-a-half. We now have the staffing to be able to do that. Our run numbers are way up over last year, and those we're able to staff those ambulances and the fire engine, etc. So that is great news, and we certainly benefit from that. You benefit from that, but we thank you for voting for that. The last thing I just want to touch on, 911. The chief talked about how 911, you know, the cell phone, it comes right in. You can use the cell phone, you can use your house phone, etc., but please use it. I can't tell you, here's one thing that Eastham doesn't do very well, is call 911. We get phone calls on the business line for someone having chest pain or someone having shortness of breath. Please use 911. There's more to it than just calling to have us give you a checkup. It gives the address, it gives us exact directions when it comes out. So, and it identifies your house. So please, 911 is not for someone else. It's for when you have something going on and you need us. It may not seem like an emergency to you, but truly it could very well be a big emergency. Just call 911, don't call the business line, don't call in here. We've had some pretty hairy situations because of that. So I just implore you to do that. And the last thing, please, if your street does not have a street sign, I'm implementing a program where we can get some funding to put street signs on all of them. I know there's some amount of being quaint on some of the dirt roads. We have a clamshell with the street name on it. At night or after a windstorm or after a snowstorm, the plow takes it down and you're there having shortness of breath and you can't breathe and we're trying to find the street, that it becomes a big deal. Okay, so from my perspective, I implore you, please, if you need a street sign, let us know, we'll get to it, and also put those house numbers on your house itself, okay? That's about it, that's all I have. Thanks very much for letting me be here, and if you have any questions, please let me have them, okay?
Okay, I'm going to try and keep this brief and not feel like I'm in a race, but so Amy covered some things that were on my sheet about the new zoning, and I will get to some future things that hits on, because we're by no means done with zoning. We are at the beginning of a path to really reshape that commercial district, and it's going to take time and effort and energy, but we're very committed to doing that, and we have lots of opportunities that I'll talk to you about that are helping us along with that, thanks to our now fantastic relationship with the Cape Cod Commission. They're providing us a lot of very free expertise and really working as partners with us, as well as we've gotten a couple of grants to look at different aspects that we'll talk about. One is Complete Streets, which is going to help us do sidewalks, and one is an architectural design contest that we won. So we're being used as a model for that district of what kinds of affordable housing might be affordable and look good at the same time. So we're in the midst of that as well. I want to just give a quick water project update. I know I have some questions on water, and before I get into the nitty-gritty, I have 3 handouts on the table that's next to the coffee table. One is sort of walk through our website and how you hook up to town water. I wanted to tell you about it, but I also wanted to bring a handout, and unfortunately it doesn't have a big title, but it's the one with the blue website link. And I also brought our complete contractor list. These are the approved contractors for the water system. They have provided us with references insurance information, and they've taken a course basically on how to hook up our water meter and have listened to our engineers and walked through things. So we're confident that they know what they're doing. If we have problems with these contractors, if you report problems with these contractors, we take them off our list. It's that simple. So these should be good, and we want to hear your feedback if you are concerned that they're, you know, asking too much money or not performing the way they should be performing for you, which is a successful water hookup and your lawn looking perfect at the end of it. And then the third handout is the current roads that are available for hookup. And we, as we go through the water system now, anytime water comes down your road, it's available to you. That's how it works. It's the backbone. Phase 1 was to kind of get the infrastructure in place. Now that it is, any road we go down, it would be automatically available to you. So this is updated on the website, and there's also a link that can tell you, if you put your address in, when your home might be available to be hooked up to water, so what phase you're in. I'm happy to report that we are way ahead of schedule, so we're now trying to move roads forward as we go in. We had a major problem with the storms with some homes in Southeast Tam that were basically, their wells were contaminated by salt water during the big storm surges that we had this past winter, and we were able to hook all of them up to public water ahead of time. So we now can make, we're confident, we know what we're doing now, and we have the excess capacity to be able to go in and sort of make tweaks and do some engineering to get people hooked up if they need to. So please ask. So those are my water handouts. Going back to water, phase 1, as I reported last year, we were on time and ahead of budget by about $3.6 million. Very, very proud of that number. That's over 10% under budget. We have continued this trend in phase 2A, and we are now under budget. The project is under budget by a little under $7 million. We're hoping, and I want our staff to take credit for that, because we have been watching those numbers, and we do have bi-weekly meetings to just look at numbers and the engineering, but it's also due to the brilliance of Environmental Partners Group. We just, frankly, we just chose the right engineers, and they really think about, anytime we go out to bid on a contract, they look at the bidding climate and they say, if we go out in October instead of May, we're gonna get a better price. And that's how we've literally shaved the millions off. But I want to commit to you that because we're under budget, don't think that we're taking anything for granted, and don't think that that money is going to be spent on something else. 1, because it can't, and 2, because our goal is to really, now that we're into it, our goal is to have $10 million at least of excess capacity at the end of this water system, and to be able to return some of that to you. That's my goal. The second goal I have is to put some of that, ask your permission, be able to go back to town meeting and ask permission to take a little bit of that and put it back into public road infrastructure, because we know we're making a mess of the roads, and we need to figure out how to do some road repair and not add more tax burden to you in order to do that. So that would be the 2 goals that we have with that excess capacity. So we've also transitioned this past year to operating a public water system, and I'm happy to report that that's going well. We have over 700 customers. By the end of this fiscal year, we'd like to see 1,500. So we'd like to double that amount this year, and of course, with the debt service, it is imperative that we hook people up to public water. The more customers we have, the more likely it is that we're going to be able to start paying some of our water debt with that excess money in revenue. So we're looking at that bottom line. Right now, it's very positive. We spent a little over $200,000 on the water system, and we took in a little over $200,000 in water revenues last year. So we're in a positive place. but we could be doing much more. And to give you a comparison, the town of Orleans makes $2 million a year selling water. So the potential is there to create revenue in terms of water that will start to pay that debt. And that's what we need to get those tax numbers down. Right now, you're carrying the whole burden of it, and we'd like to see that change a bit. How to hook up. So the handout with details goes through it, but basically we have a total online system right now. So what you need to do first is look at that contractor list and pick out, we're encouraging you to get 3 quotes, as always. On that list, there are some contractors that are more expensive than others, and we sort of know that at this point because we're getting feedback. There are a couple of contractors on that first page that do it all. They have large companies, and so they can do the contracting, and they also have plumbers, and there are some that don't. So you choose. If you have a plumber that you're comfortable working with, then you would just need to hire the person who would be digging the trenches. Once you do that, they will apply online and pay the permit fee, which is $90. It's not huge. We still have the free meters, so unless you need some special services, you won't have to pay anything other than there is still no hookup fee, just the $90 permit fee. Once they complete the online application, it goes into our queue, and emails are sent to everyone within our system that needs to know about it, the water operator, etc. So they just handle it from there. So it should be pretty easy for you once you hire someone to do it for you. And again, if you have any issues or problems, we now have a full-time water person, Kim. Kim is available every day at Town Hall right now. She'll be moving to her own little water operations trailer probably at the end of July, and that will be next to Natural Resources and DPW. But let me know if you can't reach her, because we'll handle it, but she's excellent. And she also has an email address, and I did not bring it with me, but I'll try and get that out to you so we can a lot of people are asking about the affordable housing updates. So the Purcell property, which is the one off of Brackett Road, has been fully funded. They've done their financial closing, and they are going to start digging and doing the site work in August. So you will start to see clearing of that land to the left of Sam's Deli. And the driveway will go in to the housing. They're going to do the first circle of housing first and then the second. So it'll be under construction for a while, but they're going to be doing all the site work, septic, water connections first, starting this year. We are also looking for a name for that development and the road that goes into it. It will be the person's address, so it'll be like, #1 Woodland Way or whatever. So we're looking for a name. We don't like Purcell particularly, so no offense to anyone who named Purcell, but we're just looking for something that reflects the beautiful woodland site that we've got, and we just haven't. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you, Amy. Kim St. Aubin is my water clerk, and she's at waterclerk@eastham-ma.gov. Thank you. So Purcell is going very well. That's excellent. So tea time is the other big issue, and it has been in appeal now since the Zoning Board of Appeals denied their special permit. We've been in appeals with the Housing Court in Boston for almost a year, right? And that is coming to a close. So basically, we have negotiated an agreement with the tea time developer. He is coming back with a scaled down project for the zoning board to take a look at. It looks like it will be a maximum of 84 units in 2 phases with a more townhome type of look in the front and some large buildings in the back. They will be coming back before the zoning board sometime this fall. I imagine it'll be at least a 90 to 120 day process. So most of the winter, they'll be in front of the ZBA again. If they get approved for that project, it will be in the spring, and then it will be at least 3 years out. So I don't know how they'll get the funding for it. I think that's the big question right now, because the state funding mechanism, we were kind of the last ones in the door with Purcell, and so the tax credit financing is strange right now. But we have, I think, achieved the goal of making it look prettier and being more community residential feeling. Hopefully, if it moves forward, that will it will be something that we can be proud of. However, I also have asked our attorneys to begin to offer some other things. Like, for instance, if they can't get the financing, I'd like the town of Eastham to have the first refusal to purchase the property if they don't move forward with it. And I feel very strongly about doing that. And that may not necessarily be with tax dollars. We have a lot of people who are willing to contribute to that purchase at this point, so no worries. Wastewater planning, we did pass our first debt override this town meeting for wastewater, and it's simply because we had an opportunity. We got a grant from the USDA for $750,000 to do some redeveloping drainage around Salt Pond. So looking at Salt Pond as the only water body that we have total control of, we are just going to wrap our arms around Salt Pond and get it to be crystal clean before we move on to anything else. That's the goal. So we have a matching grant with the USDA. We have to contribute $250,000. They'll give us $750,000, and we will have a whole new drainage system which will get rid of the water runoff from Route 6 into Salt Pond. And that's moving rapidly forward. USDA is very excited about it. They're also giving us money to do 2 other culvert projects, which will be exciting. So I won't share those with you today, but they're coming up. The other thing about our wastewater plan forward is that we're going to start to look at some solutions as opposed to just plans and studies. I know it's been frustrating for members of the Board of Selectmen and for community members that we continue to study these things, but in one sense, instead of committing hundreds of millions of dollars to a solution that we don't know that we need, the studies really do help us slow the process down and take a look at what our neighbors are doing and how well those things are working before we kind of jump in. So I'm really happy with my staff and their sort of conservative approach to this, because I think in the end we're going to be able to do a lot more alternative technologies that will solve our problems for a lot less taxpayer dollar and be nicer to look at than septic treatment plants. Other capital projects, the chief talked about the police renovation, that'll move forward, and we also approved some real renovation of Rock Harbor. And I know that, like a lot of Eastham residents, people don't even realize that Eastham has a side of Rock Harbor, but we do. And it's really a lovely place, and we've put in a lot of money in Conservation Foundation. We own a lot of property around Rock Harbor that we have as beach and conservation area, which is lovely, but we haven't put any funds into updating the docks, the pilings, and permitting that harbor so that we could really use it as a community resource. So that will be moving forward this fall. It's still in planning stages. The only thing that's certain is that by next spring we will be working on replacing all of the infrastructure down there, docks, pilings, because they're very old and dangerous. Other than that, everything else is sort of up in the air. We'll be working with local community groups, and we welcome your input. I'll probably put out surveys just to get a sense of what people really would like to see down there. The other new issue is retail marijuana sales, and I know people are concerned about that. We had a lot of confusion about it. It's a very sticky wicket, really, for us, and it has been for our community. It's a new animal, and none of us really know what to do about it. However, practically, we saw that we couldn't say no. So if we can't say no, what can we do to get ahead of it and control it so that we don't have too much of it in the wrong place and in the wrong shape? So that's what we did. We adopted, this past town meeting, local bylaws to exert local control over the time, the place, and manner in which people can sell marijuana legally in the town of Eastham. And so what that zoning does is it limits certain uses to our tradesman park area, which is Holmes Road. So it can only be grown and cultivated and stored in the Holmes Road area, and retail sales to our commercial district. So without doing that, really we were opening ourselves up to some uses that would have been outside of the commercial district. We've also set a limit. We were allowed by law to set a limit on the number of establishments based on the number of liquor licenses we have. That's what it was sort of tied to in the state. So we will only have 2. So we have a maximum of 2. Right now, we have signed an agreement with a medical marijuana provider who wants to go into the mercantile. But they have not received their license yet. Licenses just started being issued this April, and they haven't received a license yet, so I have no idea when that will go through, but we do have one provider that is interested in doing medical only for a year, and then possibly doing adult use retail. That's what it's called. It's very strange, but anyway. The good news for us is, and for you in some ways, is that we were able to get a local options tax on the gross sales of any product in the town of Eastham. So we will see a new revenue source as a result of this. Estimates anywhere from $40,000 to $60,000 to begin, and then it will be 3% of the gross sales. So that could be a lot of money for the town. We're just not sure yet. One of my goals, and the Board of Selectmen were kind enough to let me really run with this, was increasing revenue, non-property tax revenue. You know, we're so reliant on your taxes to survive, and I wanted to make sure that we were leaving no stone unturned to try and find some other new sources of revenue. So the marijuana tax is one of them, and we passed that. We also passed this spring town meeting the local options meals tax. We were the only town on the Cape that didn't opt into that meals tax. And I think we tried once 10 years ago and it failed, and so we just didn't bring it back. But we're leaving $130,000 on the table every year for that. And that seemed unacceptable to me, so the board agreed, we moved forward, and the town passed it. So as of July 1, if you buy a cup of coffee at Cumberland Farms, 1 penny of that goes to the town of Eastham, and I love that. I do. I go in just to buy coffee and give the penny. I think it's fabulous. In addition to USDA funds and the SAFER grant, we also brought in over $500,000 in other grant funds. And a lot of it is police and fire bringing in money, but Paul Lag has been, our town planner, has gotten at least 3 planning grants to help us with the DCPC process. We're now involved in Complete Streets funding, which may give us almost $500,000 towards sidewalks. Sidewalks are very expensive, but we're hoping to prioritize certain areas for sidewalks, like maybe connecting Town Hall to the library, that down Samoset. I know all of you driving around, you see what we all see, which is cyclists and pedestrians and cars, and they're all sharing the same patch of pavement, and it's very dangerous. So we'd like to use Complete Streets funding to make bike lanes and walking lanes. Even if we can't do sidewalks, at least we can, you know, have a place where people are supposed to be with their dogs and their strollers. We're also looking at a sidewalk on the road to Wiley Park. If you ever go to that swim at the beach or walk your dog, again, it's a long stretch down to the pond, and people drive too fast, so we need to, you know, get a safe place for pedestrians, especially because it's our little kid swimming beach, for goodness sake. So, the rental tax is a conundrum for me. I mean, looking for new revenue for the town, that would clearly be a place that we would be excited to accept that revenue. We would probably start with very low percentage in terms of adding that additional tax. We're hopeful but not confident that the House and the Senate will come to some kind of compromise on that bill. We may have to start all over again. But that is a piece. And I think this new bill that they're looking at really does try and protect the people that are just renting one home for short periods of time. I think they have done a good job with that piece. So unless you're in the business of being a landlord with multiple rentals, you know, it shouldn't pinch you too much, we're hoping. The other funding source that's ending soon is the CPA, which pays for a lot of projects, historical, active recreation, open space. That law is basically ending in 2021, and we will have the option to continue it. We could return that 3% back to taxpayers. We could continue it at 3%, or we could continue it at 2% and take 1% towards capital costs, water project, wastewater. So we're going to be having that discussion over the next year. And, I'm sorry, I'm trying to wrap it up. The other handout I have is strategic planning. We're doing a strategic planning process. We would so like your input. There is an online survey, SurveyMonkey. It takes 8 minutes, they're telling me. I did it in a little more than 8 minutes, but that's what they say. If you could fill out that survey for us, we would be very, very happy. We know that this is an important time to look ahead and to plan for the future, and we can't live day to day. We know that, you know, this water debt and all our other expenses are really raising the tax rate beyond some people's means. So we really need to focus on not only other revenue sources, grant funds, but making good choices, making really prudent choices over the next few years. And the Board of Selectmen is hoping that this strategic planning process will guide us towards what decisions you think we should be making over the next few years. Looking forward, I also wanted to tell you that we're pretty committed to every penny of new revenue that's coming in from any one of these taxes is going to debt service, debt burden, and capital projects. We're not going to put it in the general fund. It's not going to be spent on general fund purposes. That's one of our commitments. And until the reserve fund is fully funded, we won't be doing anything else. So looking forward, the complete transportation study of Route 6 is going to be completed by the Commission this fall. That's a leftover piece from the DCPC. All of that planning will continue. Once we have that transportation study, we'll probably start to have meetings in the fall, winter, next spring, next summer, to look at what we want to start proposing to the Department of Transportation at the state level for Route 6 improvements. I don't want to go to them until we have a real sense of what we want, because I think that it would be, you know, they're just going to say no anyway. So I think if we come with Plan A, Plan B, and Plan C, that'll be we're much more likely to get something. We also, this design guideline project is really going to help us, that Paul got a grant for. Basically, they've chosen Eastham as a, for our commercial district, as a a community that has both rural and urban elements because of the congestion along Route 6. So they're going to be doing these architects for free are doing some models of what affordable housing and business structures should look like. And they also leave plans behind so that business owners and developers can take a look at those. So that'll be really interesting to see what comes out of that. And we're going to continue to work on the complete streets and go for funding of that. And by the end of this year, I hope to have a five-year road and stormwater plan. That's been the sort of the thorn in the paw. We're definitely tackling it. We have a full pavement management study completed. Now it's up to us to prioritize and fund it. And I think we're really on our way to that. I think it'll be good news for you, not bad news. And we also need to develop our 10-year capital plan for the maintenance and upkeep of town buildings. They really need a plan that's formal and can be tackled every year annually just to keep us in good shape so that we don't have these large capital projects. And that's it for me. I will start answering questions. Safety questions first.
You could look through yours. I have just a few questions here. I have a question on the opiate crisis. Obviously, the opiate crisis is a crisis everywhere. So here in Eastham, we don't necessarily see the amount of overdoses that some other communities see, but we do have a few. We had one just last week where our officers had to use Narcan to bring somebody back. We had a significant drug arrest the other day involving some methamphetamine, where an individual who was actually selling the drug based on what we saw in the car after the individual drove across 4 lanes of traffic and hit a tree. Thank God they didn't hit another vehicle. So the answer is yes, we do see drugs here. They're everywhere, and no matter what town you are. And since we're on Route 6 and people are traveling through, many times we come in contact with them during motor vehicle stops or God forbid, through a motor vehicle accident. But in terms of the crime problem, do we see an increase in crime as a result of the opiate? We haven't. Our crime rate is very low, and that's a good thing. So we try to keep that as low as we can. One thing you can do to help us is don't leave valuables in your car. A lot of times these crimes are crimes of opportunity. So if you're at the beach, lock your car, don't leave your laptop, your purse, your iPad in your vehicle in view so people can just go in and pull it out. Many, many times people just enter a car because they're not locked. Or go into a house, people are at the beach, the house is unlocked, they walk in, they grab their valuables, they come back from the beach and it's not a good night because they're missing a TV or a laptop or a cell phone or cash or jewelry. So, be smart, common sense approach, and you'll save yourself some aggravation. Couple other questions. Do we still accept pills at the police department? Yes, we have a container in our lobby. You can come in anytime you'd like, drop them off, and then every 6 months, the DEA works with us to take all of the pills that we collect throughout the year, and they incinerate that for us so we don't have to deal with it. So it's worked out quite well. I'm getting a lot of questions on speeding. That's a big part of our job every day, 24/7. To answer that, we're out there enforcing the speed as much as we can, keeping in mind we have anywhere between 2 to 4 officers working. In the summer, we have a few more. But it's a difficult job, and we do the best we can given what we have. But to help with that, if you have a specific problem on a specific road that you have noticed an increase, or a car that every day comes through that you're concerned about, drop me an email, give me a call, call our dispatch, and we'll try to increase radar patrols in that area. We also can put the speed trailer out, which some of you have called the sun, and sometimes that helps as well. The other thing that's good about the speed trailer is we can also use it to do surveys. So not only does it monitor the speed and give a readout, but it literally has a computer software program which will tell us how fast they're going, what time of day they're coming, how many cars are coming through. And a lot of times that will also help us target enforcement for that area, given what time of day, what type of speed, etc. So it's very helpful to us. Do we have to register? I can't read that. I don't know what that says.
Our cell phones with the town to connect it with an address.
No. If you have a cell phone and you dial 911, it'll be the same as it is with anywhere else. The only thing you should do is register for code red with your cell phone. So that is very, very helpful if you want the reverse 911, if that's the question. A lot of questions on the cyclists and on the junctions with the Cape Cod Rail Trail. You'll notice that there's an enhanced warning system at most of the junctions, and they'll be continuing to increase that safety zone, but it's a problem. And we have a lot of bikers, and I bike all the time. I'm doing the Pan Mass, but I know that. I know how the trail runs, and I will tell you, most people are pretty good, but there are some that just blast through these intersections, not just here, but all over the Cape Cod Rail Trail. It's very, very dangerous. To answer that, our summer officer, Officer Gurin, is going to be out there and will be on his bike, handing out tickets, talking to people, handing out brochures. And also with our J1 students, you'll notice that they come through, they have no helmets. A lot of times they have no lights on the bikes. Our police association and our union just initiated a program where we're going to be handing out safety lights. So if you see somebody, let us know, or let them know. Tell them, hey, go to the police department and get some lights. We have them. We have a lot of them. So we're handing them out, but it's a tough mission to try to get that out to them. Kingsbury Road, can people park on Kingsbury Road? Yes, they can. If it says no parking, then of course you can't park there, but if it doesn't have a sign, they can park and stay off the roadway. You can't block a lane, but you can park in a safe manner. The answer is yes. What can be done to get drivers to slow down? If I knew that, I'd be a millionaire. But we try our best, as I said earlier, and we'll continue to do that. And communicate with us. Let us know if there's a particular problem. We'll work with you. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to try and go by topic. So water. We hooked up to town water this spring. The meter is turned on. If you're hooked up, the meter's on, and the first bill will be sent August 1st. So they're quarterly bills, so every 3 months is a period, and you'll get a bill. So August, look for it in August. And I have to say, I am hooked up to Eastham Public Water, and I have a 13-year-old who takes like 30-minute showers. Oh my God, it's crazy. And we're irrigating, we're doing everything. And my water bill is still pretty good. I'm pretty happy with it. So if I accept town water, may I also keep my well to use it to maintain my garden and plants? Absolutely. It has to be separate plumbing, totally separate plumbing, but yes, you can keep your well, unless, there's only one caveat, if you are directly adjacent to the landfill, that's in the area that the DEP is saying, no, they don't want that water circulated. So if that's happened, we've already cut and capped your well. So pretty much if we haven't notified you, yes, you can keep your well. The average cost of a water hookup is really hard to estimate. I think we were getting higher prices at first. Things have calmed down a little now, so the contractors have calmed down a little. But we're looking at $3,000 to $5,000. But if you have a property that has a long run back to a panhandle lot or something like that, it's going to be more expensive rather than less. And again, we're asking you to get 3 prices, not just because it's practical, but because we do have some contractors that are clearly charging more money. This next one is a condo association that's subject to seasonal occupancy. And I guess we'd have to look at that on a case-by-case basis, because if it's related to septic and not water, then there may be still a seasonal aspect to it. But I think that's something that we're going to have to look at with public water is really changing our development, so it's possible that seasonal occupancy could change to year-round. But case by case, you'd have to come in and talk to our community development office. Now that water is underway, will there be a refocus on getting natural gas hooked up? Yes, we keep trying. They keep putting it off. But we don't have control over it. We can't do natural gas as a town, so we have to rely on the gas company, and they keep moving that. 2020. Now, yeah, it was 2019, now it's 2020. Can we have hazardous waste collection scheduled in summer? I think so. I don't know what the impediment to that would be, other than the transfer station's really busy, but we are working cooperatively with other towns and trying to schedule it over the year. So you can go to Orleans, you can go to Wellfleet when they have their day. That's how we do it. We accept other residents at our transfer station too. Are there any plans for a community center? Not immediately, not immediately. We're kind of looking at the library as our community center right now, and I think we need some more space for the recreation department, but not really sure how that's going to work at this moment. When are they going to start dredging Town Cove? Not anytime soon, because the permitting process for that will take at least 2 years. So right now they're still studying and trying to begin the permitting process. It has to pass through 2 conservation commissions, Eastham and Orleans. It has to do a state MEPA review and then a federal review because it is in the national park boundary. So if they let us dredge Town Cove, it will be a ways away. Affordable housing, what will be the percentage once we get Brackett Road? I think that will bring us into 6–7%, somewhere in that range. 10 is still our goal. We have other programs that will help us fill that in. Probably with tea time, if we get those units, we would be, so we'd be close. We'd be close.
I think it's 9-ish on tea time.
Yeah, we'd be like at 9% with tea time. So the goal is somewhere in the 225 unit range, I think. Regarding the possibility of flooding on the bay side, what's the most recent update? How do we access that information? You know, I think it's difficult. I don't think we have anything, and I'll talk to Paul about putting something on our website. We have gotten a 1% insurance knockdown because we do have a flood plan and a flood management plan. We are currently involved in 2 grants right now with the Center for Coastal Studies. They're doing modeling to study how waves and sand are moving on all of Cape Cod, but we just added our Eastham Wellfleet piece to that. And we are starting to meet all 4 of the Outer Cape towns together, Provincetown through Eastham, the 4 town managers, and merging our staffs to take a look at emergency management and storm issues, because clearly we are being greatly affected by coastal erosion. Each town has its own challenges, but the Bayside this year was a big challenge for us, and also we're looking at relocating Nauset Light Beach Road as it's being, falling into the ocean. Thank you for paving Hoffman Lane, and how did you manage to finally do this? Well, I just love answering this question. So each time we go down the road, a private road, a public road with water, at first, we had in our specs, in our specifications, 4 inches of pavement on the trench. So this past year, what we started to do is really analyze each road as we go down. And if we have a road that was only an inch thick to begin with, why would we pave a 4-inch trench? Why wouldn't we take that 4 inches of pavement and spread it out over the road? So Hoffman was the most creative use of that. In other words, we had to pay the contractor to repave the patch, and I said there really is no road to patch. So let's just take the 4 inches and spread it across the road, and that's what we got. So it will be, it's obviously a thinner road, and it will not last that long. It's probably last 2 to 3 years, and I'm hoping that that will give us enough time to make Hoffman a town road. So I'm at the, just north of the Orleans Rotary, there's a low spot on Route 6 with water close by on each side. Water apparently went from the ocean to the bay. Oh my God. Are there any plans in place? Yes, I think what we're doing with stormwater and drainage in general is taking a look at those low spots, and we know we have them. We have an issue on Cove Road, we have an issue on South Sunken Meadow that we're dealing with this summer, finally. And all of those low spots will be looked at. Obviously, the engineering solution is to raise the road, but that really, it's so expensive and it just doesn't really work. It's just working against nature. So we try and do culverts under, we try and do some creative Cape Cod drainage, and also looking at rain garden and different kinds of things that will help give the water somewhere to go that's natural and not obviously costing millions and millions of dollars. I think that's it. Thank you.
All right, so I just had a couple here. I guess this is low-speed vehicle, LSV.
Oh, yeah.
So it says, any town appetite to change speed limits to 30 miles an hour so residents can operate low-speed vehicles. Well, I didn't really know there was an issue with low-speed vehicles, but I have to say I have a huge appetite for lowering the speed limit. The Cape Cod Commission is doing a traffic study, not just for the DCPC area, but from the Rotary to the Wellfleet line. And it'll involve modeling with different speed limits, lane reductions, all sorts of things. So hopefully we'll get some really good information from them as to what we can do, actually to tie into our future zoning plans, because they're going to look at all that too. Like if Northeast Dam were completely built out, what would the traffic patterns look like? And that was another question here about the Tea Time property and handling traffic. They're putting that into their traffic study, looking at how many more vehicles would be added to the roadway, and also with any future development that could go in along Route 6. So we're really looking comprehensively at the whole thing, and hopefully we can get it changed. I know a lot of people are worried that, oh, if we reduce, from say 4 lanes to 3 with a center left turn lane, that we're going to have backups for miles. But believe it or not, those models improve traffic flow, believe it or not, because you get those left turn people out of the way, because those are most of our accidents. The chief could probably tell you, most of the accidents we have in town, there's someone's wanting to make a left turn, someone coming up fast behind them, they dart over to the right-hand lane to get around them, and all, hell breaks loose. And we get some really horrid accidents. So hopefully we can get this under control, and they talked about bicycles a little bit. We have people biking up and down Route 6 because they can't get to work any other way. And I'm not one to condone putting bike lanes, labeled bike lanes on Route 6, but at least have a shoulder that's wide enough so a bike can travel on there without them getting run over. So we're looking at a lot of this, so hopefully we're going to make Eastham a lot safer place in the future.
The deputy has a few questions.
You have some questions? Go ahead.
Just got answers.
Sorry, I forgot.
I got a million questions. So, real quick, regarding the Police and fire equipment. On private roads, is there a minimum road width or overhead? It's 13.6 by 13.6, so 14 feet, just 14 foot square. I drive around all year long, well, this past year, I drove around all year long, and mostly they're passable. The ones that I've noticed that made mention. Okay. The lockbox program, the fire department has the only key. If the police need access, they give us a call. We work well together with them. So the question was, does the police department also have a key to the lockbox? And the answer is no. And does the fire department offer a house inspection for proper fire prevention? Anytime you want a safety inspection, we have outreach programs. We install grab rails. We do a whole safety inspection of the house, and we'll also do a pre-inspection before you do your house sale, if you have any questions, okay? Anything else, you can always call. We're always here for you, okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, panel, Dan, Ed, Amy, Jackie. I'm sure that the membership appreciates all the information that you've given us today. Thank you, members, for attending, and may I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Aye? Or excuse me. Nay?